Hi, my name is Nick Hahn, and I maintain a blog named Mini Matisse. And today I'm going to present to you a little bit on empowering your students. To start out with, my first suggestion is to make your environment safe. If your students feel safe, they'll feel like they have the opportunity to even be empowered. So to do this, a lot of teachers will create their goals to start out with, such as setting up a syllabus. In my classroom, I use I can statements, and I also use a classroom packet. So this classroom packet has everything that they will be doing the entire quarter. It tells them exactly what the I can statements are, the goals of the classroom, and it shows them the notes that they'll be taking, as well as all of the assessments that they'll have throughout the quarter. In my classroom, I have 4 simple rules. The 4 simple rules are be safe, be productive, be respectful, and be responsible. Now, in the first few days of the class, I will always take them online and we'll go more in depth of what each of those rules mean and what they look like for our students. But keeping it simple in the classroom is really what I like to do, and then just have an opportunity to go more in depth and discuss it to create a nice safe environment. Once I've laid out all of my expectations for the whole entire class, I need to make sure that I'm enforcing them. So making sure that there's no tolerance for bullying, encouraging a positive environment. These are a couple of things that I always keep in the forefront of my mind as my students are in my classroom. Allow your students to communicate and advocate. One strong way that I have learned to teach my students how to communicate is by having my students email their parents or their guardians. Now, I create the formatting for my students completely. They don't have to think at all. It's all laid out for them as far as what I want them to tell their parents. We take notes ahead of time. All the questions are answered. I give them time in the lab. We go into the lab 3 times every quarter. And then I'm also making sure that I respond to the students. I also see that a lot of parents respond to their students as well. Once again, this lets them feel like they are being heard and therefore empowered. Now, I would also encourage you to have your students advertise the things that are going on in your classroom. There are so many amazing things that happen in your classroom.
RMS has the
Let them
opportunity
advertise
to be
it.
part of a worldwide project. We are going to create artwork that will travel throughout our community and beyond. Rockbox is a website that encourages students of all ages to create a rock and write about it.
So as you can see, I had a student actually do the voiceover for that. We played it for the other students in the school on the morning show. It was awesome. It really empowered my students. Give them a voice. Now we talked about emails a little bit, but what I really like about the emails is it helps me get to know my students better. I don't know about you, but for sure for me, I have the largest classes that I have ever had in all of my educational background. So in saying that, unfortunately, I don't get to hear the voices of all of my students. These emails really help out. I hear the tone that they use to their parents. I get to see the interaction between parents and students. Some of their little inside jokes are just amazing to give me the insight to get to know my students, hear their voice. Artist statements, of course, that's a more traditional way to make sure that you hear your students' voices, but still a very strong way to hear what the students want to tell the world about their artwork. And then using a peer critique. This little critique here is called speed dating, and it's a lot of fun. We'll take a few minutes. Okay, everybody's. So here we have the students lined up next to each other, and I asked them to chat a little bit about their project. Let's continue here. Dates. Okay. Now we're still concentrating on the peace poster. You're going to talk about the symbols that you drew that represent peace. You'll share that with your date as soon as you tell them your favorite candy. Go ahead. I love that one because the students get to talk to one another. It's a real quick exchange between peers, and they feel empowered because their voice is being heard rather than my voice. Creating choice for your students is also a very easy way to empower your students. As we know, you can teach the same concept a million different ways, and because I've been teaching for a while, um, I have a couple of projects that qualify for each concept. So here is an example of my students going up and they're voting. In this case, I'm using Google Forms. I have a picture embedded in the form, and they're going up to my smartboard and voting. You can have them just raise their hands or vote on the board, have two pictures on the board and have them vote. Voting helps you hear their voice and empowers your students, and also allowing students to choose their own subject. This is a great way, for a great and simple way for students to feel empowered and also to have a little buy-in on the project that they're creating. Let students become the experts. We are honored to teach so many different students with such brilliant brains. Let them be the students. Now, I know that when I give students suggestions, they take it sometimes, but if a peer gives them the same suggestion, oh my goodness, they listen so much better. So this is a process that I do called 112. And what I do is I have each student have the opportunity to talk where the other person does not. And then the other person repeats back what they just heard, and then they switch that. So the person who repeated is now the presenter. And then the last 2 minutes, they get to exchange ideas and suggestions. This is a good critique because it allows students to have a voice for each other and give suggestions for one another as well. This is a picture of a student who was done early with his project, and he was actually a pretty strong artist. So I asked him if he would like to record his Zentangle that he created, and here I just set up the iPad so that he could do so. Took a few minutes, edited it when he was done, and now students in the future will actually be learning from his hands rather than mine. And we've been talking a lot about middle schoolers presenting, but you can use the little guys to really present as well. So here is an example of my little line ninjas, and they're teaching us how to play a pretty fun game called Line Ninjas. Let's take a look for a minute.
I say vertical, you make your vertical chop. Vertical.
Yeah.
Horizontal.
Yeah.
Diagonal.
Love that game, and the kids do too. And what they really like is the fact that they're learning from other second graders. Give them opportunities. So here's some easy suggestions for you. The first one being something that most art teachers already do: display their artwork. Students love showing off their artwork to the rest of the school, to their peers, to their parents. You guys know this, you guys see this. Keep up the good work. Offering competitions is another way to empower your students. Not every student is going to win, but everybody has the same chance. And when they do win, man, celebrate it. Make sure that you're telling your school board, make sure you're telling your administration. And another way to empower your students is to publish their art. So here's an example of a clip card that I submitted to School Arts Magazine, and sure enough, it was published. Again, we celebrated the artwork that was displayed in the magazine. Thank you so much for coming to my presentation on empowering your students. Again, my name is Nick Hahn, and I maintain a blog called Mini Matisse. I have so many other ideas that I'd love you to come join me in the conversation of art education. So again, thank you very much for joining me today.